Hey, this is Mr. Coker with Foundations of Algebra Lesson 3-2, Simplifying Square Roots with Variables. So, what I'm going to talk about is taking these types of problems and simplifying the square roots of variables with exponents using what I like to think of as the smiley face method. Sounds silly, but it works. So, to begin with, we'll start with the square root of x squared. Just let me remind you, in case you're like, I'm a little confused about squares and square roots. Remember that when we have x squared, it means that we have x to the second power, so we have x times x. The exponent, of course, is the number of times that the base, in this case the variable x, is being multiplied by itself. So x squared is x times x. The square root, what that's doing is undoing an x squared. So, for instance, if 5 times 5 is 25, the square root of 25 is 5. Getting that out of the way, let's get to how to do this. So if we have x squared, we can easily simplify. Now this one's pretty easy because, again, square roots and squares cancel. So the answer should just be x. That should be the answer. This square root cancels and the square cancels. But why is it x? Another way to look at it is we have two x's. I'm going to group two x's together. I have this smiley face. How many smiley faces do I have? Well, I have one. Well, so I have one x. I have, x to the first power, which we don't have to grab. We don't have to put the exponent of 1. We can always leave that off. So, let's go to the next one. What about x to the 4th? Hopefully you can see where this is going. We have 4 x's in this one. X times x times x times x. Well, let's group them by 2's because the square root is undoing an x squared. So every group of 2, the square root's eliminating one of them. Well, we've got 2 groups of 2 smiley faces. So when we take the square root of x to the 4th, we count the number we have 2, and make it x to the 2nd power. X to the 2nd power. Okay, those two are simple because we don't have any left over. The exponents are even numbers. What about when we have an odd number like 7? Well, we're still going to have x, 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 7 x's. And I'm going to group them by 2's again. 1, 2, 3. Oh, but we have one left over, of course. Well, what about when we have one left over? Well, again, I'm going to count my smiley faces. I have 3 of them. I'm going to make x to the 3rd. Well, remember, each square and square root canceled for each of those individually. What about this one that's left over? Well, he's not getting a smiley face. I'm going to give him a sad face. I wouldn't really do that on your paper, but I'm doing it here because he's sad. Why is he sad? He didn't get out with the square root. He's still stuck inside the square root all by himself. All his friends are gone. So x to the 3rd root x. That's how it's said. But what it really means is x to the third times the square root of x. Okay, one more. And the last one here is one with two variables. X to the fifth, y to the third. You can probably guess we are not changing anything. Do what we've done so far, we're just going to do it twice. We're going to do one time for x's, one time for y's. X to the fifth, well, we have 5 x's. I'm still going to group them in smiley faces. And we have how many? 1, 2. So I've got x to the second power. I have the one sad x left over. Away to the square root with you. He's got to go back inside that square root. Now we look at the y's. We had y to the third, y. How many times can we group them together? We can group 2 of them together. We have one group. So we have y. One y comes out with the square root. Y to the first power. Remember, we don't have to put the 1. And then we have one y left over. Well, if we have one y left over, where does he go? Back inside the square root. Now it looks like, oh, are we done? We're not done because we've got to simplify it now. Our numbers that are outside the square root are variables, are terms. They're still can be multiplied together. They're just variables. So x squared times y is combined to make one term, and that's all outside the square root. Now we take what's inside the square root and we put it together. So inside the square root we have the square root of x, the square root of y. We can rewrite it with x with the square root of xy. Oh, well, that's not very neat, but hopefully you can see. Outside the square root we have x squared y. Inside the square root we have x and y. So our total answer looks like this, and we would call it x squared y root xy. So it means the square root. It means x squared times y times the square root of x times y. So I think with this method, it makes simplifying square roots much easier. Thanks for watching, and have a nice day.